welcome back to the show. You are literally like an OG. You are on episode 24. And if y'all want to tune into hearing Kara's original story, it's about how she paid off $25,000 of debt, making less than $30,000, which is like mind blowing because we hear a lot of these like personal finance stories. Oh, I paid off like $200K of debt, but also I'm a software engineer in San Francisco that earns multiple six figures. So it wasn't that hard. So I love stories like yours where it's like you're accomplishing extraordinary things on very ordinary incomes. And I feel like your brand personal finance is very much for like the common folk, the ones who want like actual advice that is useful from an actual human being who understands like what it looks like to never make six figures, to like just try to figure this shit out without any type of financial literacy education. So first off, thank you for the work that you do. You're definitely a legend in the space. And I'm so excited to be talking to you today because you have a brand new book coming out, Green Money, and it's so needed. And we're going to be talking about what this book is all about and how we can reframe our minds around wealth. So it's not just like this consumerist, capitalist bullshit that we're being spoon fed, but you can actually like be a good person and make good money and use it to do really great things in the world.
Thank you so much for having me, first of all. And yes, I was thinking about the first podcast episode. I was like, when was that? That was years ago. Like, oh my gosh. Whew, girl, we go way back, I guess.
We do. And you were also an incredible speaker at my conference in Puerto Rico last year. So that was amazing. And I just love everything that you're doing. So for folks who don't know who you are, which is like shame on you, get out from under the rock that you were living under. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
I'm Kara Perez, and dear listener, I'll give you my TLDR on my background. Okay, so dad is from Dominican Republic, moved here when he was 18. Mom is white. I grew up in the house my mom grew up in, and we just never had any money. So I always like to say I've been obsessed with money from a very young age because it was always, no, put that back. No, we can't have that. Why are you getting the name brand thing? You know, like, and when you hear that, when you're growing up and you're constantly aware of how much you don't have, it develops, at least in my case, an obsession. And so then I go to college. I'm the only one of my siblings to go to college, and I graduate with that debt. And then I'm working as a waitress. And look, some people in food service make good money. That was never my experience. So I hit 25 and I was like, holy God, I am going to be low income. I'm going to be in debt. I'm going to be broke forever unless I get my life together. And so I started really focusing on trying to pay off my student loan debt. I worked 5 different part-time jobs, hustling, and refer back to my first episode to get the details on that. But I blogged about it. You know, the internet is such a powerful tool, and there is so much power in telling your story. And I think you're such a great example of that. And so I really like to think that I'm still obsessed with money now, even though I would say it's a much healthier obsession. I'm much more curious about how money works than how money is going to ruin my life, because now I've been debt free for 9 years. I have savings, I have investments, I have an understanding of how money works. And that's what changed my life. It's incredible once you can harness the power of money to change your own life. And now I'm in this phase where I'm asking the question, and this is basically what my book is about. How can we use money to change the world around us? Because let's face it, like, we stay chasing this paper, right? Like,
they don't give us a choice.
They don't give us a choice. They don't. Like, money makes the world go round. And if we have problems with how the world works, to me, it just means then how can we use money to create that change? And that's what I wrote about in the book.
Amazing. So the book comes out November 13th, and you guys need to get a copy of this, not just because it's a brilliant book, but also because we need to be supporting women of color authors, especially in the personal finance space, because this space is still hella fucking white and just completely tone deaf in a lot of different ways, unless you get perspectives like Kara's in your ecosystem. So I'm really excited for folks to get a copy of this book. And honestly, I feel like it's just such a refreshing permission to just think about money in a way that doesn't feel like toxic. For me, oftentimes, yes. I feel like this existential crisis going on in my head where it's just like, do I want too much? Like, but then I'm also thinking about, I'm a first gen wealth builder. Like, I have to think about how am I going to set up my future child for like success so she doesn't have to experience what I experienced. But then also my parents are going to need me. And so like there's just this constant struggle of how can I build wealth in a way that doesn't make me feel like a shitty person and that like I'm not taking from communities, which frankly I come from. Let's talk about that. Like, how can we be good humans and also like want to become wealthy?
Yeah. Okay. It's such a good question because I feel like here in the US, we have such a weird relationship with money in that people want to be wealthy and also we hate wealthy people.
We really
Like
do.
we are so mean to wealthy people. And I think what we really like the Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezoses, like those are the people who are truly hoarding wealth. No one needs $200 billion.
Well, and they also make it very easy to hate them.
Oh, yeah, exactly. They're running their mouths and it's like, sit down, you know? Oh, it's ridiculous. But I think we group together the person who has $2 million with the person who has $200 billion. And it's like, no, babes. Actually, no. Like you could get a cancer diagnosis in the United States, be worth $2 million and go bankrupt. So we have to understand that the system that we live under forces us to be financially fluent or to suffer. That's the situation. So it's not I really don't think it's a problem to crave financial security and to want comfort for yourself and to use money as a tool to create comfort. But to your question of, well, how can I do that in a way that doesn't make me a bad person and that doesn't impact communities that I come from or communities that maybe have less than I have or that are marginalized in other ways? And that's really what I like to talk about because this is what I think is the most interesting thing. To me, I think it comes down to a level of recognizing what can I do within a bigger, broader system? And what do I need to do for my own safety? And what do I have to give? So I'll use myself as an example. Dad's from Dominican Republic, mom's white. I'm so white. Like, very proud to be half Dominican, very proud of my Latinidad. Also, never going to deal with racism. That's just how it works in my world. And so I think of myself as that person in the Latino community that needs to be able to have conversations with people about racism. Like that's a burden that I get to carry because I don't have this other burden of people being racist towards me. And so taking that lens and applying it to our money, again, I'll use myself as an example. I don't invest in fossil fuels. So oil, coal, and gas, I don't invest in them because I'm an environmentalist and they are the primary cause of climate change. And I can opt out of those things. I can say, you know what, I'm going to put my money elsewhere. I have multiple streams of income. At this point, I'm financially stable in my life. I don't need to make money off of those three things. I can make money elsewhere. And I'm okay taking the small financial hit that may come with that because I can make money elsewhere. So when you think about how can I be a good person, it really comes down to recognizing like, what spaces do I occupy in the world? What privileges and accesses do I have? And what challenges do I have? And then from that point, you can ask yourself, okay, where can I make moves?
I absolutely love that perspective because it really just gives us like permission to balance the goal of wealth building with also realizing that it's not just like a one size fits all system, which I think can be kind of the messaging around a lot of personal finance content. You know, there's no nuance necessarily. And so I think that's why I've had conversations with people where they're just like, well, I don't want to invest in stocks because I'm just going to be part of the problem. It's more complex than that, right? It's like you kind of have to be more intentional in that journey, but it's not like a one and done.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Like, again, people like to break things down into black and white. And it's like, life is the gray. Like we all live in the gray. And you may look at the world and think, it's all going to hell. Everything's bad, you know, or you might think, I don't want to be a part of this. I'm going to go live in the woods. Okay, well, guess what? The woods are owned by the government. Okay, like
Fair enough.
We don't have any just like land out there. We have public land and we have private land. It's all owned by somebody. So you can't escape the system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to think of it as the AOC method, right? Like AOC is deeply critical of the US government. And also she works in the US government. Like immediately you might think, well, that's hypocritical. No, she has criticisms of the government and she is making it her mission to try and change the government. AOC is very practical. She understands that we currently live under the government. And that's how I like to think of my approach to money. Like if you completely opt out of the stock market, you are going to cede a level of power that you otherwise could have. Now, I actually do know a couple of people who have completely opted out of the stock market, but they have financial power in other ways. Like one of them lives on land that they have inherited generationally, right? So they don't have a living cost. They don't have a mortgage. The property taxes are like in a trust. I'm not totally sure how it works, but she lives for free. So because of that, like, I don't know about you, but I pay rent. I know you pay a mortgage, like, so she has a privilege you and I don't have. And you have to ask yourself, if by opting out of something I disagree with, instead of working to change that, am I going to hurt myself even more? Am I going to lose even more of my power? Like, there is no perfect way to exist under capitalism. We're really always talking about harm reduction strategies. So free yourself. And I talk about this in the book, like, especially in the chapter on ethical investing. It's like, I'm not a perfect investor, and I'm not here to teach you how to be a perfect investor. I'm here to teach you to be a better investor and to think about how to use your money as a tool when it comes to where you bank, to where you invest, to how you spend, and to how you build community.
I love that perspective. And honestly, that's why I'm so passionate about the topic of entrepreneurship too, because I feel like you have to kind of be part of the system if you want to change it. So as a business owner, I can decide to have like good business practices that I can focus on hiring only people of color. I can focus on providing living wage. I can focus on providing benefits that are not common in like regular corporate America. And so at some point, we kind of have to get out of like that victim mentality somewhat and just be like, I am operating within a system that is intended to oppress. How can I be part of that change? And honestly, it's money. Like, let's just be honest. Money is power in this country. Every politician that is in charge has been funded by somebody with money. Every person with power in this country has either money themselves or somebody with money that is funding their power. So like, let's just not pretend like that's not the reality and put ourselves in positions where we can equalize that power and use it to the benefit of not only ourselves, but to the things and the people that we care about.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, one thing that I just don't mess with is apathy. Like people who like can't care. I'm like, I care so much. All I do is care. Okay. And that means by default, I'm going to have to work with people that I maybe don't agree with 100%, or that I'm going to have to work with within circumstances that I maybe don't agree with 100%. And actually, this is a conversation I just had on my Instagram, because historically, I've been in business 7 years and I've been full-time for 5 years, and I haven't done very many sponsored posts on social media. But the last 2 years have been tough on my business. Like the last year and a half have been tough on my business. And so I just brought it up with my Instagram audience. I was like, hey, look, obviously I'm not going to take money from brands that I hate. And like, I sometimes actively talk smack on my Instagram account. I'm like, screw you, Wells Fargo, screw you, Chase.
Yeah.
So I will not be accepting those partnerships. Not that they're reaching out, but I was like, but at the end of the day, like the reality is I need to increase my income. And if I can't do that from direct to you sales audience members, then I need to look elsewhere. And like, are you cool with that? And do you get that? And everybody, I put up a poll on Instagram. One person said, no, don't do that. Like, find another way. One person, hundreds, it was like 500 other people were like, get your bag, girl. Like, and that's the kind of thing, like, I have to feed myself. I have to keep a roof over my head while I try and dismantle fossil fuels. I can't starve in the streets and create social change because I won't be here. So we have to understand that there are levels.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's talk about a concept that you mentioned in the book, which is value-based spending. I recently polled my own audience, and 49% of them admitted to a spending addiction, which set my radar off. Like, holy shit, what is happening? First, what's your take on like why people could be potentially addicted to spending? And then how can value-based spending maybe be the solution to getting out of that cycle?
Oh my gosh. This is such a wonderful question. And I'm going to try and keep my answer short because I'm like, girl, we could go for hours.
The floor is yours, ma'am.
There is a a blog post, I think. I'm not totally sure of the title, but it's something like your lifestyle has already been designed. I think it's on the website is called Raptitude. And I go back to this post often. There's a paragraph that says the 8-hour workday is not actually super productive for companies in the way you think it is. It's not that workers are working for 8 hours and creating a ton of value that way. The 8-hour workday is very productive because it drains people and keeps them buying things. Like if you have to commute 30 minutes and then work 8 hours and then commute 30 minutes home, are you likely to cook dinner for yourself and your 3 kids, or are you going to pick something up and thus spend money? So I think a lot of us are addicted to spending because of ease, because of exhaustion, and because we've been told over and over and over again, the only way to achieve status and success is to have more than other people. So capitalism and extremely wealthy people have created this competition among working class and middle class people, trying to get us to spend more and more so that, air quotes, impress other people. And this is something I talk about a lot in the book because that's nonsense. And the real path to financial freedom is stepping out of this kind of consumerist rat race and being able to spend on what you love. Maybe what you love is fairly luxurious. Maybe you're like, I'm flying first class, I'm staying in 5-star hotels, and like, that's my jam. Okay, that in and of itself is not a problem. But it is a problem when the only way you can get joy is through spending. And so I like to advocate for people to have a no spend day and just try and do things that don't require you to spend money, right? Like have a friend over. So that way you're seeing someone you love, doing something fun, watching a movie, painting your nails, coloring books, literally whatever. But the focus is not on spending money. It's on spending time with someone that you like. And then just noticing where else in your life you get joy, where you get power, where you feel good. Is it centered on money? Or do you use money as a tool to try and create those connections? Like often people go out to eat a lot. A, I think, right, they're kind of tired, but B, food is delicious, you know? But what are they doing? Are people going out to eat alone? No, a lot of the times they're meeting up with friends. They're going out on date night. So it's that social connection that's actually really valuable to them. That's what they value. And they're just expressing it through eating out because that's what's easiest and that's what's accepted in our society. Again, nothing inherently wrong with that, but we have to understand why we do things. And we have to reclaim our money from the literally multi-billion-dollar marketing campaigns that companies are putting out year after year after year. Like you've seen a Nike commercial. Every time I watch a Nike commercial, I'm like, I am going to become an ultra marathoner.
Ain't happening.
I'm like, yeah, all I need is 4 pairs of sneakers. And then I'm going to do this. And then it's like, oh, wait. That's the power of marketing, right? Nike has one of the most successful and the most expensive marketing departments in the world. There are hundreds of people whose full-time job is to get me to buy sneakers. And you can't just self-will your way out of that. You have to understand the game and then come back to your own money and say, wait a second. Where is marketing siphoning my money out? And where can I reclaim that?
Yeah. You know, I often hear stories of people who they're following like the road less traveled when it comes to the way that they operate with money. And they get criticism from like friends and family, like, oh, but you make 6 figures. Why are you driving that 15-year-old Toyota Corolla? Like you should have a new car, or you just got a promotion. So like, why are you still living in this studio apartment? So how do we combat that freaking narrative that can come from the people that we care about like what we're doing, quote unquote, right or wrong with our money?
It's such a good question. And it's such a good cultural question too, because I do think that for a lot of people in the first gen community, a lot of our parents or a lot of our grandparents come from a very different world and come from very different status symbols. So to see you driving like a janky car, they might feel almost like their feelings are hurt that you're driving a janky car, whereas you're like, hey, this thing is paid off, you know? And so it's 2 different perspectives. So what I like to tell people is if someone is kind of constantly criticizing you, try to have a little bit of grace and try and get at the root of why it bothers them so much by asking questions. And you can straight out ask like, why does it bother you what kind of car I drive, right? If you have that kind of relationship. But you can also ask questions like, well, here's what I get out of driving up this car, right? Like, here's why I do this. It's paid off and I can invest more money in my retirement. And that's important to me. What do you think I should pay in a monthly car payment? Like, what do you think is a good monthly car payment for me? And that will put people on their heels for a little bit of a second without being too aggressive, because they begin to realize what they're really saying. Like when someone says you should drive a fancier car, the financial translation of that is you should be in debt. And it's okay to question why other people want that for you. And I think being like, do you think I should have a $400 car payment? Or is it more like $250? Like how much car payment do you think I can afford? I think that all of a sudden people are like, oh my gosh, yeah, why am I doing that to you? I don't know. Let me shut my mouth real quick. I'm an Aries. Okay. I'm a little bit like, explain yourself.
Give me the justification for your nonsense.
Exactly. Like Cardi B, what was the reason? What was the reason?
That's so good. And oftentimes, and this is not like 100%, but most of the time, people who are giving you financial advice that's unsolicited, you might not want to actually like replicate what they're doing because they're probably not the best example of like what you should be doing. So
yes,
take people's advice with a grain of salt.
And I had this conversation with someone else recently too. Like you do also have to be so confident in what you're doing. So I think also on your end, really be clear on your vision. Like I want to retire at 47. I'm 36. I am crystal clear on my vision. I know exactly what I want to retire to. I know what I want my days to look like, what I'll be doing. I know all my numbers, like how much I need where and what I'm going to be spending and what I'm going to be spending on. And that fuels me. I think if you're kind of waffling on something, it becomes easier to succumb to other people's visions for your life. But babes, this is your life and this is your money. And what do you want to do with it? And what kind of impact do you want to have on the world? So being really clear on that, that's going to give you strength.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk sustainability. I think some people hear the word sustainability and it automatically triggers like visions of frugality from their childhood, like when their parents would save the I can't believe it's not butter crock to like use it as a storage container. So what is the difference between frugality and sustainability?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I agree. I feel like sustainability has a bad reputation, kind of the same way that like budgeting has a bad reputation. You say the word budget, people are like, oh, so I can never go out to eat again. And it's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. The difference between frugality and sustainability is that a sustainable practice, whether it be environmentally sustainable or financially sustainable, is something that you can easily replicate. Whereas frugality, the goal with being frugal is to save money. Like, I want to spend less. Whereas with sustainability, it might be something like, oh, I'm actually going to I'm going to spend like $1,000 on my backyard garden, which is not frugal, right? Like you could definitely get cheaper fruits and vegetables at the store, but that way I can grow my own tomatoes and zucchinis or whatever every single year for however long I live at this house. And that gets me out of the house. It gets me into the sunshine. I don't have to drive as much. And it's like something I enjoy doing. So sustainability often will save you money. I think also too, a lot of people think sustainability is always more expensive because it's like, get this bamboo or get this linen. And like, no, a lot of sustainability is reusing those I can't believe it's not butter, or like I'm a one paid off car household. Like that's more sustainable and it saves me money. But fundamentally, frugality, the end goal is save as much as possible. And sustainability, the end goal is as replicable as possible with as little a footprint as possible.
Mm-hmm. So what does that look like practically for you in your house? So like give us some examples of how you practice sustainability, especially from the financial perspective.
Oh my gosh, so glad you asked. So many. So I'm a big gifting economy person. So I am in my local Buy Nothing, which is a group that I talk about in the book, founded by two women in the Seattle area, where it's on Facebook and it's an app. And you can just go on there and be like, I'm looking for a washing machine. Does anyone have a washing machine? And someone will be like, I have an extra washing machine, and they will gift it to you. And it's free, no exchange of money. I do that in a lot of areas of my life. I like to trade services in my business. I like to trade or just gift away things that like I'm not using. I'm also big in thrifting and the secondhand economy. So like so much of my house is hand-me-downs. Like one of my grandmothers passed away last year. I have a rug that was hers. I have a chair that was hers. I have some art on my wall that was hers. So where I can get things for free, that keeps it out of the landfill. It's sustainable in that way and it saves me money. Other things that I do, and I want to just say that these are choices I've made. So if something resonates with you, try it. And if you're like, I can't do that, that's okay. I don't eat red meat and I don't eat pork. I eat chicken and I eat turkey. So that's generally a more sustainable approach to food. I bring my own Tupperware containers when I go out to eat, so I don't have to get the plastic ones that they give you to help reduce waste there. And I host things like clothing swaps or group walks. So ways that people can gather and connect and build community without being focused on spending money. So those are just some things that I do. Again, if you feel inspired, try one out. You don't have to live exactly like me to be sustainable.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And you know what I'm noticing? Like the younger generations, especially like Gen Z, are so into like thrifting and sustainability. It's just like a normal thing. Like it's actually trendy now to go to your local thrift store versus like that's the thing that you wouldn't tell anybody. Like I think our age, if you were wearing like thrifted clothes, God forbid somebody finds out, right? Like that's where your parents freaking bought clothes. So I just love how the mentality is shifting with the younger generations, but even older folks too. Like my mom is a thrift store diva. Like this woman has everything fucking designer. And she's like, I just paid like $5 for this Michael Kors like sweater. And I'm like, you know what, mom? You're making me want to go to the freaking thrift store because she's always looking fabulous and she's not contributing to the fast fashion climate issue. And you're also saving a shit ton of money just like buying things that would go in the trash otherwise.
You know, clothing and accessories are a really good area for people to start a sustainability journey in because there's so much of them. We make about 100 billion new pieces of clothing per year. So that's all the way from like the Prada and the Gucci and the very exclusive designer names down to the fast fashion. But there's such an abundance out there that, yeah, if you're willing to go to the thrift stores or shop like the Real Real or Poshmark or something, like you're going to find really amazing stuff at half the price, 25% of the price. Like it's out there.
Okay. Let's talk about finances, banking. How do we choose companies that aren't inherently like adding to the chaos of the world? Like, how can we be conscious consumers from a financial perspective when we're looking at where we want to save our money or where we want to open an investment account?
So the big four banks in the US are Wells Fargo, Chase, Citi, and Bank of America, and they all suck. Like they are all truly comic book villain levels of evil. So one of the easiest things you can do is not keep your money there, and you're already going to be a sustainable hero. And when I say they suck, just to give a little bit of a background, like Wells Fargo has been sued multiple times for continuing redlining practices. So not giving mortgages to brown and black families or giving them mortgages at shittier rates. So just racism as a business practice, not cool. And they also fund like fracking in West Texas or like deep sea oil. I want to say deep sea oil diving, but deep sea oil extraction. And that's really bad for the planet and really bad for the ocean floor. And it's killing fishes and dolphins and cute little seals. So we don't love that. So not keeping your money in these banks and instead keeping it at a local credit union or a community bank that is local to you is one of the easiest things that you can do that will have a major impact. Because the more of us that pull money out of Chase, the more Chase is going to go, whoa, wait a second. Where's our customer base going? Should we change our business to cater to a more ethical approach to life? Like, should we stop doing these things? That's how change is going to get made. So when it comes to banks, there's a fantastic resource. It's called Bank Green, bankgreen.org, I believe. And you can check that out and it will tell you like how good or bad your bank is and make recommendations for you.
I love that. The very simple steps that we can take, y'all. And also, I would encourage you to see who your bank is funding politically. Okay? Because y'all would not believe some of this money that's coming from your banking institution to put some really toxic politicians in power.
It's so true. It's so true. That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I think it just comes down to the fact like money does kind of rule the world. And the more conscious you can be about how you're particularly using it, that's how we start to make this change. Okay. So you talk about using the power of money to change the world in your book. That sounds amazing, but also like very lofty. So how do we bring that down to practical tips and advice that we can implement in our daily lives?
Yeah, it is lofty. But like we've been saying this whole podcast, right? Like money is the most powerful thing in our current world. So if you're interested in making the world better, right? Like if you're volunteering or if you're running for office or, you're recycling, why not turn that attention to your money is basically what the book is about. And so some of the kind of first steps I encourage people to take is get out of the big banks, find a credit union. That's number one. But the other thing that I think is really valuable for people to do is sit down and look at their budget. Like, where is my money going? And if you notice that all of your money is going to major corporations, try and buy local for one need per month. So I'm a devout Aldi shopper. Okay. I love Aldi, saves me money. Incredible. I also try to go to a local farmer's market once a month. So that way, yes, I'm supporting the Aldi conglomerate. Again, progress, not perfection. But I also am supporting my local farmers and keeping money in my community. So if you notice, you're like, damn, I am just like so dependent on Amazon and Target. Like, okay, well, the next time that you need garden shears, instead of ordering that on Amazon, can you go to your local gardening store? Can you just type in like garden store, Iowa City or whatever, and buy them there? So that way you take this money out of the corporations and you put it in your community. And the statistics around when you shop at a national chain versus when you shop at a local chain are really shocking. When you spend $1 at a national chain, between 70 and 80 cents of that dollar leaves your community. It goes elsewhere. And when you shop local, about 70 cents stays local. So that means you're helping whoever owns that hardware store, like buy cleats for his daughter's soccer. Like that's where that money ends up going, as opposed to like Jeff Bezos's pocket. So it's thinking about things like this, but those kind of practical steps are really just asking yourself, where does my money go? Where do I want it to go? And how can I close the gap between those two things?
I love that. And I'm going to challenge folks who want to put this into practice too. When you're dealing with small business owners, stop trying to nickel and dime them. Okay. Because you don't walk into Walmart or Target and ask them to give you a discount on their shit. It just is what it is. And small business owners more than now more than ever need your full financial support. And they do not need to be haggled over their prices, because then you're just a part of the problem.
Yes. Oh, snaps. I'm like, yes, queen, slay.
I love putting money back into my community. And the same as you, I'm an Aldi fanatic, but also the farmer's market. I mean, this stuff is just better quality. Like, let's just be honest. More often than not, the stuff that you're getting from small businesses is superior quality to any of the shit that you're getting from the big brands anyway. So if that's not enough motivation for you, just like feeding the local ecosystem, like you're more often than not going to get a better product.
100%. Yeah. Like, again, those companies, I said this somewhere, I can't remember where, like Amazon has never come to my house and helped me like shovel out my car. I live in Massachusetts. It snows here, right? But who has? Like my neighbors, right? Like, so if we're going to accept the support from our communities, we have to support our communities in return.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Okay, let's talk about your book writing process. When you were first thinking about what you wanted to create, first of all, was this part of like your overall vision for Bravely Go? Like, did you imagine yourself ever writing a book?
I've always wanted to write a book. So yes, I was hoping it would happen one day.
Amazing. Okay. And so how did this actually come to fruition?
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is a good story because it happened. And then also I made it happen. So, okay. A friend, probably a mutual friend of ours, but I'll keep her name off air, was like, hey, you should write a book. And I was like, oh my God, I totally should write a book. Yes. And she was like, I'll introduce you to my agent. And I said, thank you. And then this agent and I didn't really click. No bad blood, but they didn't really get me. And that's fair. I'm a little specific. Okay. So then I was like, I'm going to do it myself. I've done everything in my business myself. It's fine. I'm going to like query other agents, or I'll just pitch myself to publishing houses. And then that did not go so well. I just got ghosted. And then another agent reached out to me and said, hey, I love your voice. I've been following you for a long time. And I was like, oh my God, amazing. And they had sold a very successful personal finance book. And I was like, look at this track record. Okay. So we worked on the proposal together. And then she pitched me to a bunch of publishing houses. I got rejected, but I got a lot of good feedback about like what they saw for the book. So we incorporated that into the proposal. And then I had 2 publishing houses reach out to me. They slid into my inbox and were like, hey, we think you should write a book. And I was like, oh, it's so funny you say that because I happen to have a book proposal right here. They both made offers. I turned down one right away. They saw my book proposal and they wanted to kind of go in a different direction. And I was like, no, I want to write about this. And the second offer was like, yeah, we love it. We think it's great. Here's our contract. My agent did some negotiating and then I signed on the dotted line.
Amazing. When did this all happen? Because I want folks to understand like the process, the laborious process that it takes to put this into the world.
So that first mutual friend reached out to me in 2021. I signed my contract November 2023. So tail end of 2023. And now my book comes out November 2024. So really, it's been like a 3-year process.
Yeah, that's what it takes, y'all. So every time a book comes out, especially from a person of color in this space, like understand the sacrifices and the time and the investment that it has been, because none of us actually make money in this book writing process. You know, it's the stuff that hopefully comes after that elevates your brand, that makes you a thought leader in the space. That is usually like where those returns come from. But oftentimes your favorite creator is taking a financial hit by having to make space for themselves to like be able to write this book, to turn down opportunities. There's just a lot of shit that goes behind it. So this is why it's so important to support your authors. I want to know from you, Kara, what's like the thing that you discovered about yourself in your book writing journey that maybe you weren't even aware of? Because I feel like, you know, those feelings of imposter syndrome can come up a lot. And life has a funny way of like throwing a bunch of shit at you also when you're trying to write a book. So like,
Ooh, yes.
what was your journey like?
That's such a good question.
Didn't you like move and stuff while you're writing this book?
Girl, yes. 2023 was just a super hectic year.
Yeah.
2024 has been a hectic year. I moved from Texas to North Carolina in 2023, and then I moved from North Carolina to Massachusetts in 2024. The whole time I'm like negotiating the book deal or writing the book, and it's like a mess, an absolute mess. I would honestly say, so I'm an Aries. I'm also like, I'm just absurdly confident and I'm very comfortable with who I am. At this point, like I'm 36, I feel really good about the work I've done on myself and some experiences I've had. And I wrote this book being like, this is awesome. Like, this is the best book ever. And then I recently reread it and I was like, could be a little bit better here. Like I could have been a little more clear here, or, oh, I'm not sure I would phrase it like that anymore. And so I think what you have to understand is that writing a book, it's an encapsulation of you at a period of time. And it is totally fine and okay for you to continue to grow and change after that book. In fact, I'd say it's essential for you to continue to grow and change. I still love the book. I do still think it's fucking rad overall. But it is just funny that within a year, a kind of a tumultuous year, but just within a year, I would have phrased a few things differently. And so give yourself, if you ever write a book, I think, yeah, be hella confident and put as much of yourself into it as you can and own it, and understand that you may revisit that book in 5 years and think, oh, I've changed. And that's totally okay.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so what can folks expect to get out of your book? What makes it different than all the other personal finance books that are out there?
I'm not going to tell you how a savings account works. I'm not going to explain what a 401k is. This is both a money and a sustainability book, and it talks about how those two things work together. It is not a 101, here's how finance works book. It is a, hey, climate change is real and happening. Also, you need to have a job. So here's how you can use your money to try and lessen some of the negative impacts that we're experiencing right now. It's full of stories of other people as well. Every single chapter has interviews I did with other people who are currently living differently. So if you think about, like we talked about investing, I interviewed someone who does not invest in the stock market, and I included that in my investing chapter. I also shared how I invest in the stock market. I wanted both perspectives. I talked to a lot of people who are already doing such powerful, impactful work because I really wanted readers to leave the book feeling so energized. I didn't want them to feel overwhelmed or bored or sad, which, like, again, sometimes with budgeting or sustainability, people are like, oh, this is kind of a bummer of a topic. And I really wanted people to be like, this is awesome. So I think you'll leave the book feeling really informed and also really energized about sustainability.
Yeah, I love it. This is a great opportunity for you guys who are listening to not contribute to mass consumerism by buying your loved ones bullshit for the upcoming holidays. Think about getting them something that's actually useful, like a copy of Green Money. And you can go to bravelygo.co/greenmoneybook to find out where you can get your copy. I am literally buying copies of personal finance books for every single person in my family, in my circle, because last thing anybody else needs is some shit that's going to collect dust on the shelf.
Oh my God. One more thing to pick up, one more thing to clean. No, thank you.
Absolutely. And the best part about a book is once you're done reading it, you can give it to somebody else. And that is the actual definition of being a sustainable human. So
hell yeah. Oh my gosh. Love that.
Kara, thank you so much for being here, for writing this book. I'm wishing you so much success. And the book Green Money comes out November 13th. Go ahead and head over to the show notes description to find out where you can order your copy, and follow Kara at Bravely Go.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.